All that.
Okay.
Got it.
Okay, all right, take it away.
All righty. I think, is it Mike Johnson or Mike Losey? One of the Mikes is going to do this for us.
I got
Go,
the
Mike.
hat off ready to go.
All right.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. All righty. Any new members or guests? I don't see any unfamiliar faces with us. So I'll let Renee do some chamber announcements for us.
Okay, so the first one is the big news from this morning, which I'm sure you're all aware of. Facebook and Instagram have crashed, and they've been down for several hours and apparently have thrown quite a few people for a loop. But anyway, so they're working on it. It was still down a few minutes ago, but anyway, I'm just kidding. What's that, Bob?
I feel like the world is a better place somehow.
Yeah. Not for me. I'm like, I have things to share, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. So Fly Humboldt last week announced that $49 flights to Reno are coming from the Arcata Airport beginning November 9th. They'll have 3 weekly flights offered on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays. As a reminder, Senator McGuire is hosting a virtual town hall this Wednesday, the 6th at 6:30 on climate change. Also, Governor Newsom announced on Friday that the COVID-19 vaccine will be added to the required vaccines for in-person school instruction once FDA approval is granted. You guys can follow along with that story online. Also, FBID is seeking a new executive director. They posted a job description last week. You can find the link to the job description at fortunabusiness.com. Save the date, October 21st. That's a Thursday from 5:30 to 7. We're going to have a multi-chamber mixer. It'll be a virtual mixer. It'll be with the Del Norte Chamber of Commerce, the McKinleyville Chamber of Commerce, the Eureka Chamber of Commerce, the McKinleyville, did I say that? Arcata, McKinleyville, Fortuna. And our mixer host will be Co-Central Credit Union. We'll have member service managers from those branches, as well as the president and CEO, Jim Sessa, to give it an update on what's happening at the credit union, as well as the launch of their 2022 calendar. So we'll have the artists there. And then Humboldt Craft Spirits will be making a drink live. Jesse from McKinleyville will send out the recipe in advance so you can make it at home if you want to follow along. So that should be fun. And then next week, our special guest is the Humboldt Bay Harbor District. So that should be a good one. Hear about what's going on over there. And that's all I have. Unless anybody wants to talk about the city council meeting tonight and some of those Measure E committee. Oh, here comes Merritt Perry. Hold on, let's let him in. But Walt, before I call on Merritt with the city council announcement, would you like to give us a little snippet on what the Measure E Oversight Committee does and how important it is that we need people to join that committee? Or I can make Merritt do it.
we spend money. we oversee the Measure E income, which is about $1.6 million per year, and the department heads make recommendations for what they would like funded. The committee, with the assistance of Merritt and Aaron Selmley, the city finance director, who do basically a whole lot of the work. We wouldn't function without them, actually. And it's just, the committee makes recommendations to the council as to what we believe the Measure E monies should be spent on. The council then reviews our recommendations and incorporates that with the city budget they've accepted our recommendations every year from the get-go. So somebody's doing something right somewhere along the line. We do have 2 openings, I think. We have two members who are terming out at the end of the year, and whether they will want to continue or not remains up in the air, I guess, at the moment. So anyone can apply. We welcome everyone to apply. Go to the city website for the application forms and submit them. And that's it. And I will defer to Mara at this point. Thank you, Renee.
Yeah,
Thanks,
I'll
Walt.
add on a little bit if I could, Renee. I mean, the Measure E committee, I think it's one of the best committees because you get to figure out how to spend money and how to improve quality of life. So a big focus is how can we, provide some of those safety services which are important, whether it's funding positions or adding on, or funding the Canine or other safety, or the parks and recreation projects, what services, what new things can we provide? And so it's, to me, when you can really think about how projects will improve the community and you get to decide which ones, I think it's great. So not every committee is like that. You don't get to figure out what you're going to buy with the money. So I think it's great. We have I think we have a very engaged committee that cares a lot about the community. And I think if anybody's interested, this is a great one. And one of the other perks is they meet quarterly, not monthly or bi-weekly. So you only have a quarterly commitment. So anybody who's out there who's thinking about getting involved, this is, again, good subject matter, infrequent meetings, and the city tends to listen to the opinion we get. So you're actually heard and listened to and weigh in on behalf of the public on how these funds are spent. So.
Yeah, thank you, Merritt. Do you want to talk about city council tonight?
So it's a pretty light agenda. We have a few items, typical items on our consent calendar, minutes, et cetera, and the approval of a contract for citywide striping of the streets. And our business items for this evening are the administrative policies and procedure. We want to update some of the purchasing limits. Everybody knows things are getting more expensive. And so we're hoping to reduce the amount of work for routine purchases and just spell out what revised limits are there. We want to amend our agreement with PG&E. They have expressed interest in, we have an agreement with PG&E to use the pavilion for public safety power shutoffs. Now that we're not subject to those, they also want to be able to use that and provide services to the citizens in the surrounding area in times of extreme weather events or others. So really it's just updating the agreement with PG&E to use the pavilion in more times to provide those services, whether or not it's a power shutoff or not. And then we have another item that is required to continue using virtual meetings and comply with the Brown Act. So that's really kind of a housekeeping, making sure that we're still legitimate for moving forward with the Zoom platform and council meetings. So fairly light agenda, and that's what we have.
You're
Thanks,
also
Mary.
introducing a couple of new employees too, I think, right? I thought I saw that.
Yeah, so we have, let's see, new conference center coordinator, Lisa Houseworth, and then we have a new police dispatcher, Madison Beto. So 2 new employees, which is great.
Okay, great. And that's tonight at 6 o'clock.
Cool, thanks. Anyone else have any announcements they'd like to make? No?
Anybody tied with FFA? I saw that they've got a fundraiser or something coming up, but I don't have any specifics on that. Oh, Melissa has an announcement. Hi.
I have an announcement. It's not about FFA. This week is the first week that we are publishing the Enterprise. So yay. I am super stressed out to the max. So no one come at me with anything.
She's sharing the stress too, trust me.
I thought I already got a call from one of your reporters this morning.
Oh, good. Good to know. I like
And
it.
there is a coin operated box. Some little gremlin dropped
Yes.
one off outside my
So,
office this weekend.
Yeah, there was 4 gremlins that were running around Saturday, dropping off coin out boxes. And Thursday, you'll see the first papers hit those boxes. If you want them to be mailed to your home, you should get them on Thursdays, maybe probably Fridays. And if you subscribe today, you can get it for $50 a year. So that means it's less than $1. Dang, go subscribe, ncjshop.com. That's it. That's all I got. Yeah, Mike Losi, what's your question?
I have a follow-up to that. I did go in and talk to Iridian Caceres
Yes.
office for a interview, and it was just a really nice sit-back conversation. I really enjoyed it. She seems like she knows what she's doing, and I would just recommend, she's doing apparently a story on the city council. So I would recommend all the city council people to get in touch with her.
Yeah, she is. She's going to cover the city council meetings for Fortuna. And then we also have a bunch of other local writers that are just jumping on board to cover different things. Like, I cannot tell you guys how many different people have been blowing up my phone, social media, all kinds of stuff, just coming out of the woodworks with different ideas and stories. And it's just super exciting. So the first week we only have 12 pages, and I'm like, super, like, I don't know what you guys are gonna see. Like, I have my ideas, of course, of like, you know, Mike Johnson on the bird scooter, of course, but there's I see everything just like you readers. I am not an editor, I'm a publisher, so I'm just as excited to read Jen Bailey's article and like all kinds of stuff like you guys. So please just keep feeding me all kinds of stuff that you guys would like to see, because it's your paper, it's the community paper. So I'm super excited.
Are you going to set up a tip line? Is there going to be a tip line where people can send in stories?
There's actually on the website, it's just like hot tips where you can just go on and just fill it out. And it can be anything from, like, I saw Casey pick his nose during our Zoom meeting, or anything really.
Wow.
And Mike, pickleball, I swear to God, I had a dream about pickleball, and it's Renee and that darn puppy. She's got me sidetracked with pickleball.
Did you see my email from this morning?
I did.
Okay. That's, as long as it's good weather, apparently people are going to CR. So, I mean, and who can blame them? It's beautiful outside. And so Wednesday, 9:30.
And I see Becky has her hand raised, and then Merritt.
I do. Let's filter back to FFA.
Yay.
They are trying to, there's some students that are trying to raise funds to go to the national convention, which is every other year the kids get to go. And so there's a few of them are trying to still raise some funds in the conventions coming up at the end of this month. So contact Valerie Holmes is kind of instigating that, and she's at the district office. I know Glenn's on this call. So I think, you know, any help that these kids can get, because it's a little pricey and they get to go for a week, and it's quite the event. So, and as I said, it's every other year. So this, you know, was canceled last year. And so a lot of the kids are trying to go. So great cause. They're having kind of, I think, a fundraiser, a dessert thing or auction or whatever, but Valerie Holmes at the district office if you want more info.
Becky, Merritt.
Yeah, and Renee, I don't know if you went over the bird launch and the press release, but the bird scooters got released, and we thought it would be fun to have a council member with a cowboy hat be on the press release. So I think we got a number of comments related to that, but you know, I think it's something fun for the city. The council obviously thought about it. The chamber thought about it. So we have a kind of a trial basis that goes through the end of the year. So if people just absolutely hate it, I'd say if there's any chamber members and they had feedback, give it a little while. Let's check it. You know, if you have feedback that, hey, things aren't happening right, let me know. We can get back to them to, you know, tell them what we want to see, what we don't like happening, and we'll give them a chance to get the wrinkles out. And I'm willing to take feedback on that. So. And hopefully it's fun and a good way for people to get around and from the bus stop to home. And it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, the one thing too about it is on the app, even if you don't have an account, if you have the app, you can report if you see a scooter that's misplaced or somewhere, or, you know, needs a charge, and you can send that, and then Bird will send that notification to our local fleet manager. So the interfacing and support comes in the back end. Bird handles all that, and then they dispatch the information to the fleet manager. So that's just another nice feature. Even if you don't want to ride the scooters, but you want the app and you can see where the scooters are, then you can also report if there's an issue. And someone already called me because they couldn't find any scooters, and I said, well, maybe they're charging. I don't know. So we'll see. But yeah, it seems like people are enjoying them. I've seen them zipping around town. So that's nice. So
I personally
Yeah.
own 4 of them, and I had friends contacting me this weekend asking if they could borrow because they couldn't find any available ones.
yeah, they've been busy.
So I think they sound like they were kind of a
That's why
hit
I
this
think they're
weekend.
all, I think they're all resting and
I
being
loaned a
charged.
couple
'Cause I
of mine
think, yeah.
out. Yeah, to go join the fleet. But
And I think Merritt, correct me, but I think they'll be adding additional scooters, you know, once they gauge the demand, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it took a while for them to get them in, and they're gonna look at demand and keep adding more to the fleet. I know that must be part of their strategy, is to just see how many are getting used and keep adding more until they probably have some optimization that they do.
Did I
Denise?
hear,
Up to 75.
did I hear,
Yeah,
I heard a rumor that some kids took them into dollar store. Maybe Casey knows.
Well,
I would-
actually, children should not be on them. It's 18 and over. So if they're on them, then they apparently got a hold of a credit card or something. And yeah, so they're recommended for 18 and older.
And so it was probably Bailey's friends who had borrowed them. Went to the dollar store.
wait, disclaimer, it was former Sergeant Charles Elbrecht.
No,
So
darn it.
maybe he should talk to the chief. I think you have to have a valid license too, don't you? Don't you have to scan your license? Maybe when you create the
I don't
account?
know.
It's the same
No.
rules. It's the
It's
same.
not.
It's supposed to be the same rules as bikes, and
Gotcha.
and there are some provisions. If you want a helmet, they'll send you one if you qualify. And so, and they are supposed to have a credit card and be an adult. So if an adult put their kids on there and put their credit card in, and their kids are doing bad things, blame the parents.
Yeah. Well, yeah, thanks, Meredith. That's well
My
put.
kid was on it. I did not see the 18 and older disclaimer, but he wore a helmet and he loved it. Loved it.
All right, do we have any other announcements before we hand it over to Chief? No, we good?
Get going. Let me get him set up. Okay.
All right, I guess I'm on. Good morning, Lindsay, and thank you everyone for the invite to share a little bit about what's going on with the police department this morning. I was asked to cover quite a bit. I don't want to take up the whole time, so I may skip around just a little bit and focus on things that are a little more significant, because I want to provide some time here at the end for questions if anybody has any, or time to expand on any of these programs or issues. So we can go to the first slide. One of the very first things that I wanted to address is kind of a common question. I get asked all the time, you know, Chief, what is the update with the new police department? What's going on with it? And the second question is, what services can we get at each of the 2 locations? So the first thing I want to say is that, you know, the pod, as we call the Newburgh location, you know, that was really a forward thinking decision that was made by Merritt Perry and utilized right off the beginning of the COVID pandemic by Mike Downey, who was the former sheriff and interim chief. And so they had the forward thinking to acquire the building and move the patrol operations, that is our patrolmen and women, our patrol people, and our detectives down into a larger building where, you know, they could kind of coexist and spread out and be able to do their job. There was really no way that had the pod not come along that we could have fit everybody operationally into the main station. And so it was really a godsend that we had the ability to kind of farm some of our people out. So where are we currently? Most of the police services that the public and the community are used to receiving, those are all still housed and available at the main station. I am currently at the main station along with the rest of the department administration. We house our evidence, we do our licensing and records. Dispatch is still at the main station. We do live scans and all of the typical things that people come in as a general rule of business with the police department. They can still find all of that at the main station. The pod or the Newburgh location is still just being utilized for our operational staff. So those that are assigned to patrol and investigations, code enforcement a little bit. Wayne actually works out of both stations. It's just kind of whatever's convenient for him. But we have them down there in a more spread out environment so that they're able to, just kind of work with a little bit of room and not feel like somebody's right over the top of them. The update on the pod, the city manager, Merritt, and I work very closely on this. We put time in each week. Currently, and I'll let him interject if I have this off, but at last check, we were scheduled to pull the building permits this month, probably later this month. And we're looking for a finalization, maybe sometime as early as spring of 2022, but it could be later. I mean, there's a lot that goes into the pod. We've updated the city's emergency operation plan and emergency operating center. And so we're kind of looking to grow that from where it is currently in the conference room of City Hall into more of a user-friendly conference room where we have all the AV hookups and, more of an ability to manage any type of catastrophe or, critical incident that should occur here in Fortuna. And we can go to the next one. Yes. So when I came here in July of 2020, I made a big push to address the culture within the police department. And several different issues were looked at, evaluated, and either built upon or changed. Principal policing was something that I was very passionate about, that I wanted to take a regional leadership role in, meaning we wanted not only to train our personnel, but to have instructors in-house that could teach our outside allied agencies. So whether that was a northern agency or another agency here in the Eel River Valley, that Fortuna Police Department had a staffing of instructor cadre or staffing that could teach some of these things that have really been brought to the forefront of policing in California. And for those that aren't necessarily aware of what procedural justice is, it's more of a philosophy of fairness. It's how we go about our business, as a police department when we are contacting citizens in the field or we're dealing with their complaints, whether they be criminal complaints, civil complaints, or questions about their interactions with an officer. And so what we did is there's a photo of officers here standing behind a table with pizza on it. To the far left, you see Lindsay Frank and Detective Richardson. I had them certified by the Commission on Peace Officer Standards and Training later in 2021 as procedural justice instructors. And then Detective Richardson was also certified by the National Museum of Tolerance in Los Angeles as an implicit bias instructor. And again, the reason for that is because we wanted to make sure that the culture within the police department progressed, to kind of keep things up to date with what the standard in California was, and also be able to pass that forward or pass it along. We wanted to be able to be the agency within the Humboldt region that said, hey, we can teach other departments and we can certify you with these programs. We can go to the next slide, Lindsay. Other big programs that I feel were pretty significant to the police department and also to the community was the reestablishment of the police department's Canine program. And so we had a lot of help in this area. We had help from the city council, from the Measure E committee. We had tons of financial support from the businesses in the Eel River Valley, and also citizens that, just came in and wanted to help out with this particular program. So we acquired and reestablished the program early on. I arrived in July of 2020. We procured our first dog, shown on this slide, Kane, in February of 2021. So we had a very rapid progression to get everything in place and certified. And, it's not just as easy as buying the dog and saying, here's the harness that says Police Canine. We had to reevaluate and update all of the department policies, which meant a deep dive into recent case law, use of force law, different things, so that we could make sure that our program here at the police department was successful. We did that. We assigned one of our former canine handlers, Sergeant Primafori, as the new department coordinator. And so he kind of manages and oversees our current program. After that, things happened very quickly. We got Kane, as I said, we got Kane in February of 2021, and then we got him off to apprehension and patrol school in March. He did very well. He was paired with a seasoned officer, Dennis Stevens, who is on the SWAT team. He's also one of our field training officers. And then in June, he was sent off again to be dual certified as a narcotics detection dog. Since Kane and Dennis's return from school, they have done a number of demonstrations. They are always available to businesses, excuse me, NPOs, any type of organization, the schools. We did kitty camp in the park to do demonstrations, and we do those, free of charge at request. So it really, what it does for us as a department is not only give our patrol guys and our detectives an additional resource, but it also helps us bridge that gap with the segment of the community that's looking for some sense of approachability with police officers or the police department. And what we find is by getting our canine teams out there, like at rodeo time or, different events that happen throughout Fortuna or within the region, is that we are getting people that come up and engage in that conversation with our personnel and our staff like they haven't before. So the dog really is, kind of a segue into building on relationships within the community and, giving the department the image that we are approachable and that we do want to be a part of what's going on. So we can go to the next slide. And so we didn't wait long. We had great success with Kane and Officer Stevens. And so we just continued to get that encore of support from our local businesses and donors, along with some of the fundraisers that we were taking the initiative on here as a police department. And we were able to get to a point where we could fund independently through donations and just other support from our businesses, a second canine team. So we acquired Blitz, shown on your slide there. He was a little bit younger than Kane. We got Kane at just over 2 years. Blitz comes in a little on the younger side. 14-month Belgian Malinois that we procured from our same vendor, Whitmer Tyson. And he's been paired with Officer Matt Moore, who is also one of our more seasoned patrolmen. He is one of our field training officers, and he's very, very active in what goes on here at the department. So Blitz and Officer Moore, they actually started their basic handler course today. And so they'll be gone throughout the month of October getting their post certification, which will give the Fortuna Police Department two canine teams, one for each side of the schedule. So the idea is that we have blanket coverage in the city and also available regionally for any type of mutual aid request or outside assistance from our allied agencies. We'll have a dog on, both sides of the week. So we're incredibly thrilled with, just having the ability through Measure E and the council and city staff and donations and the businesses, identifying this great resource and being able to capitalize on it in this way. Having 2 dogs, I think that's the first time in history that the police department has accomplished that. And we're looking forward to this hugely successful program going forward. So we'll kind of switch gears a little bit, and some of the city staff and council have seen some of this before. I just recently did a quarterly update for quarters 1 and 2, but I kind of want to get out to the community, you know, what's gone on from January to June 30th here in the city. And so when you hear chiefs and other command staff personnel talk about the Uniform Crime Report and Part 1 crimes, those are essentially the major crimes that each department throughout the United States reports on a monthly basis to the FBI. And Part 1 crimes, as you can see, are like homicide, forcible rape, robbery, aggravated assault, burglary, other larcenies, which is theft. Motor vehicle theft is kind of its own little category, and then arson. And then if you look at Part 1 crimes in Fortuna, it basically tells you kind of what is our state of affairs here. Well, I mean, Fortuna is a pretty safe community. I mean, our homicides are down, rape is down, robberies are down. Our aggravated assaults are up by a few. You know, that's just me as the chief being transparent. When I say they're up, we're talking about less than a handful as compared to quarter 1 and quarter 2 of 2020. Burglaries are down, larcenies are up, motor vehicle thefts are down, and arsons are down. So collectively, all of our major crimes are down, which is a good thing. And we can go to the next slide. Here is more of a comparison slide that basically shows what I was just talking about. It shows, you know, where were we in 2020 and third and fourth quarter compared to first and second quarter of 2021. And, you know, basically what you'll see is, you know, you go down to aggravated assaults, like I said, yeah, we're up, but it's only, you know, we're at 19 as compared to 16 from the third and fourth quarter. So it's not a lot or too significant to actually be concerned with. I mean, it's the difference between 3 aggravated assaults that were recorded during that time frame. Let's see, burglaries, again, less than 10. And everything else is pretty close. So we can go to the next slide, which kind of, you know, looks at a different area that we don't necessarily track for the UCR because it's not required. Going forward, 2021 was the cutoff date for what we call the NIBRS transition. And NIBRS is a program that will essentially update UCR reporting. It is far more detailed and will encompass many more reporting categories. So just talking about that for a second before we dive into domestic violence here, with the transition from UCR to NIBRS, what it will show when we go live with NIBRS is that there is a crime increase in the city of Fortuna. So when we start seeing those reports generated in 2022, it's going to show increases in all areas. What chiefs and sheriffs are being encouraged to do is to continue to keep the data as we normally have for the next 3 years, utilizing the UCR format, because what it will show is essentially it's not an actual increase. What it is a program, one program replacing another that is going to be reporting in more categorical data. So of course it's going to show that increase. Our plan here at the police department is to continue for 2 to 3 years to not only run the NIBRS reporting as required by the FBI through our RIMS system, but to also record our UCR data as we normally have, so that when we go in front of council or we do presentations, we can show that, you know, the increase in crime isn't really what NIBRS is showing it is. But that is something that should be talked about. I feel that community members should be aware of the fact that, you know, anytime you start tracking more categories or more areas, of course, it's going to show an increase. I don't see how it could show otherwise. So just being prepared that, you know, those are headlines that, you know, I imagine will be seen throughout the regional press and media, but it's not anything that's going to be, isolated to Humboldt County. You're going to see it statewide and probably on a national level, since the requirement for all agencies to make that transition for 2021 was not just California, but all states within the US. We can go back, just getting into domestic violence. That just kind of shows from January to June, we had 95 domestic violence related calls for service. Some of those end up being dispositioned as not as reported. We have a very clear set of elements pursuant to 273.5 and 243E1 of the California Penal Code that we look at to establish domestic violence, and relationships and injury and a whole bunch of different elements are involved. So some of those are dispositioned as not as reported because they don't meet the elements of domestic violence, but 95 came into our dispatch center as related to domestic violence in some way. 19 arrests were made from January to June 30th, and 9 criminal complaints were sent to the district attorney. So when we talk about the criminal complaints, all that means is that there was a certain set of circumstances during the call for service where maybe enough probable cause was not developed for an arrest. However, that doesn't bar us from sending a report to the district attorney, letting the DA review the report and decide for whoever the filing DA is, him or her, whether there is enough to issue an arrest warrant. If so, they issue the warrant, we go and serve it, and the procedure through the criminal justice system starts just the same as it would if there was an arrest on scene. So 19 arrests and 9 complaints. We can go to the next one, actually. We'll go to the next one. So those 2 slides basically tell you what this slide is saying. Is Fortuna a safe community? Absolutely, we are. Our major crime, part 1 crimes that we report to the through the UCR to the FBI are down, and our enforcement statistics are up. So we talked a little bit about Measure E earlier as it pertained to the Canine program. Measure E is so vitally important to the police department and the city as a whole. But, Measure E does more than just fund our Canine. We have our problem-oriented policing detective and our code enforcement, which is also funded through Measure E. We were very, very happy and, just kind of beside ourselves to learn that both Measure E here in the city and Measure Z, which I'll talk about in a minute on the county level, came in with more money than what was actually predicted. And so what we were also able to do through Measure E this year is to fund some replacement units for our patrolmen's MDCs. Those are the mobile dispatch computers that they work off in their cars. And essentially that's what policing in America has progressed to today. These officers work off these computers. It's how they, add details into the calls for service that they respond in some cases. And especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, these officers have been encouraged to utilize their mobiles for report writing so that, again, we create that safe space and we get the officers kind of, away from the traditional report writing room. Attempt there is just to keep our employees safe and to, give them a little bit of added extra barrier, against each other and prevent the spreading of germs. But I just wanted to add, a big thank you to Walt and the rest of the Measure E committee for all the recommendations this year. The police department is very, very happy to have those extra dollars to upgrade and provide the officers with equipment that is very much needed. So one of the other programs that we focused on for 2021 is, as I earlier reported, Measure E does fund one position. It's our POP detective. or problem-oriented policing detective who focuses more on the quality of life issues for the city of Fortuna. And that can be anything from addressing problems that are associated with transients or transient activity, as well as engaging in cleanups. So one of the things that we looked at earlier in 2021 was if there was an interest by the collective whole with our patrol staff of wanting to get involved and actually, address some of these quality of life issues with our POP detective. What we found was that there was an overwhelming desire by our staff here at the police department to get involved and actually take some of these specific projects and work on them with the POP detective. So what we did is we met with the association, we talked with city management and city staff about, ancillary duties for some of these officers who essentially just wanted to be involved in some of these cleanups or, sweeps for targeting municipal code violations. And we ended up selecting 3 officers, and those 3 officers are now basically a part of a POP team, which will go out and address some of those more flagrant Muni code violators or cleanups or activities illegal activities that are associated with a portion of our transient population. A little bit about the detectives. So this was just a slide I used for the quarterly report, but we've had some significant incidences in Fortuna within the first 2 quarters that we've had to address. A couple of them being, some sexual assaults. This particular booking photo was of the shooter in Campton Heights, May of 2021. For those of you that aren't familiar, was an issue where the subject shown here was essentially arrested by detectives for coming out and opening fire on a juvenile who may or may not have been, doing the ding dong ditch, which is where you knock on the door, ring the doorbell, and run away. So that investigation was completed, but it's, again, these type of crimes are crimes that take a lot of time and follow-up investigation. There's search warrants that have to be written and served. In this particular case, it took a little bit of time for negotiators to, actually talk the person into a peaceful surrender. And of course, with de-escalation and the state of affairs being what they are with use of force in California, that is our overarching goal at the end of the day, is to, take people into custody when necessary as safely as possible. I won't spend too much time here because we've already talked about the Canine program. And again, I want to leave time for some questions here at the end. But, I had mentioned some of the fundraisers and more of the proactive approach that the department took towards securing money and funds for our Canine program. Most of you are familiar with the stuffies. They were the cane stuffed animal replicas that we sold. We also are currently in the midst of our Police Canine Supporter t-shirt fundraiser. And we just got a couple of pictures up here of, kind of reinforcing that giving back to the community and that engagement. We had Dennis and his dog, which there's a photo right there in the middle. That was at the 5K rodeo run this year. And, I was out there. I got up early and I was out there kind of helping with some of the traffic control stuff. And I didn't really get a lot done because I got so many community members who just, were kind of beside themselves with the fact that Kane and Dennis were running in the 5K and, out in front of the gates during rodeo time on the weekend. And so this is our plan. We want to continue with this level of engagement and involvement, and, again, just provide that benchmark or that imaging where people in the community feel like they want to come up and talk to the police officers. that we have that level of approachability, so that we can, foster and maintain those positive relationships. At the bottom, that's just an email. So we received that early on from a sergeant at the Eureka Police Department. Wanted to send thanks and appreciation for, our ability to assist in Eureka with our Canine team. They had a situation where, they were looking to apprehend a burglary suspect. He was reported to be possibly armed and hiding in a heavily wooded area. And so, basically the sergeant, underlies the main issue there. The Canine greatly reduced the potential of dangers to the officers involved. And, that's what we're trying to do on the enforcement side. We're trying to give the officers a tool. We're trying to increase that buffer of safety for our human officers. And, we do that tenfold with the deployment of our canines. So Wayne Hansen is a personal hero of mine. We highlighted him during the quarter 1, quarter 2 presentation. For those of you that don't know Wayne, I would highly encourage you to get to know him. Wayne is a very sweet man with a great sense of humor and disposition about him. Retired lieutenant from the sheriff's office. He is one of the hardest workers within the city. He is constantly keeping me up to date as the chief on problem properties. And I know that he coordinates probably 2 or 3 times a week with Merritt as well on ongoing projects that require our attention. So basically, I won't run down all those addresses because it'll take me about 20 minutes to get through. But that was just some of the work that Wayne was able to accomplish during the first and second quarter of 2021. And a lot of these are just, properties which were either covered in trash or debris, or there were other issues in which he needed to take abatement action and did so diligently, whether by, keeping in contact with property owners or obtaining abatement warrants from the Humboldt Superior Court. He really is a jack of all trades, and he does a great job of taking care of the city. So I spoke earlier about, the police department just being very happy with where Measure E and Measure Z, the county tax, ended up this year. We were actually super funded by Measure Z. So again, Measure Z has historically funded our school resource officer position as well as our drug task force agent. And before I get into the weeds of Measure Z, I just want to kind of, highlight this is money that's very well spent. Our school resource officer, Lindsay Frank, has done a phenomenal job in her role as the SRO for not just the city of Fortuna, but for the Eel River Valley over the last, 3 years. I think this will earmark her 4th and final year. But, the level of service and just all of the things that Lindsay has been involved with throughout the community really came to a capstone this year when she was nationally recognized by the National Association of School Resource Officers. So what most people don't know is that award for the Regional Exceptional Service Award, it encompassed a sole selection from like 7 states. And it was a lot more of the Western states. I think it was California, Nevada, Oregon, Washington, maybe Arizona, Hawaii, and Alaska. So you think of some of the bigger cities just in our state alone, like Los Angeles or San Diego, where they have much more money and many more positions to throw at their schools. And Lindsay Frank was the one officer that was selected by NASRO for the Regional Exceptional Service Award. So, it's just kind of a huge accomplishment, not only for Lindsay, but for those that have been impacted by her service at over 15 different campuses in the Eel River Valley. And we actually conferred on her the department's Medal of Merit recently at a city council meeting, and we're set to present courtesy of Supervisor Bushnell, which I believe is on this morning. Michelle has made it possible for us to kind of replicate that at a more regional level and be able to present to the Board of Supervisors tomorrow morning. So we'll be bringing some regional attention to Lindsay and that award at 9 a.m. tomorrow. As far as we can go back. As far as the drug task force agent, kind of the same thing. We actually did lose our agent who had been assigned to DTF for the last couple of years on a lateral transfer to a Sacramento Valley agency earlier this year. So it's really hard to see. Over on the left, there is a commendation for outstanding service. Most of it has been redacted to not only hide the identity of the officer that was assigned in that role, but also some of the particulars of why the officer received the commendation. So, excuse me, the important thing is that, you know, our agent that was with DTF was really doing an outstanding job up there and was being recognized by the commander and the team leader up there, you know, for what he or she was doing. And, you know, one of the last conversations I had, that's a role that I was previously in earlier in my career. And, you know, it takes a little time to kind of get up to, you know, a position where you're doing quality cases, because it's really a high-paced, fast-moving type of enforcement, and you rely a lot on the information that you're able to culminate, and that's done through relationships. And so, you know, when you're brand new at the task force, you know, really the first step is making those connections with and forming those relationships with people who know what's going on, gaining some trust, and, you know, being able to be approachable and trusted with that information so that you can look into it and culminate it into a criminal case. But I just kind of wanted to bring some attention to our personnel who had previously been assigned to those two assignments, the school resource officer and the drug task force agent. And then, you know, going back to Measure Z again, they were super funded this year. We asked for a replica of what had historically been done here in the past, which was the full funding of our task force agent and the SRO. They were both fully funded again. And we also asked for a shovel-ready project with upgrading our portable radios. Those are the radios the officers wear, you know, in their vest or on their belt when they're outside of their car. We wanted to be able to upgrade the technology to be capable for a digital transition later on down the road. And we wanted to plan for that just because it's a situation where other agencies within the region have already gone digital or are planning shortly to go digital. And we want to be able to maintain that ability to both hear them and communicate with them over our radios here in Fortuna. And we can go to the next one. So recruitment and retention. Recruitments have gone very well over the last year. We lost Sergeant Ellebrecht to retirement, which was talked about a little bit earlier. We were able to replace his position with Sergeant Joshua Finney. And so I didn't list the sergeant's position up here, but it was one of the first positions that we dealt with. We were able to recruit and hire Sergeant Finney, who had started his career with the Fortuna Police Department. He was an experienced lateral who had moved on in about 2013 to the Arcata Police Department. And he was promoted while he was at Arcata. And talking to his chief, valued member of the command staff there, Sergeant Finney was oftentimes working at a lieutenant's level, taking on more increased responsibility as time went on. And so he hit the ground running here in Fortuna. He had a very short training period in which, you know, he kind of revisited what the current policies of the department were. He got to go out with all of the sergeants for a few weeks and just kind of get himself reacquainted with the community and our patrol staff. And since then, he has really just been a beacon. He works ahead of schedule. He has brought some valuable ideas here to the police department and is actually assisting us with some updating to just normal everyday forms that we use. So here's our new hires. And as I mentioned, we've done pretty well. Officer Halsey Taylor Halsey, we took as an entry-level officer. He was from Redding, California. I actually did not know Taylor, but I did know his father. His father and the family over there had run a local martial arts school or academy for children and adults over there for over 20 years. So Taylor, I believe he completed the academy in Siskiyou County, was looking for a job, and Taylor had family over here, and so far he's been doing great. He has 3 more weeks on his field training program to go, but you know, Taylor Halsey's out there and he's learning from our FTOs and learning as much as he can about doing his job as a solo cop and about the community of Fortuna. Sergeant Finney, we talked about, there's a picture of him being sworn in by Mayor Long. And then Officer JJ Mullen is brand new to the department. We brought him on in August. JJ is another experienced lateral officer. He comes to us from the Eureka Police Department. Public safety dispatcher Badow, she'll be introduced tonight at council. She is a Ferndale native who reached out early on this year and met with me and told me how much she wanted to be a dispatcher here in Fortuna. And so she got through the background process without incident, and she is currently training with Paige White in our dispatch center. And then Kane and Blitz, you've already met. So just kind of getting into my goals for 2021, a lot of it is, you know, we have the recruitment aspect there. So, you know, my job is to help look for ways to retain our personnel and, you know, increase the branding and the imaging for the department. And one of those ways is, you know, we're kind of in this lull waiting for COVID to get past us, at least to some extent, where we can look at, you know, our Citizens on Patrol Academy and upping our volunteer cadre. One of the goals that I had for this year, which may not really come to fruition until 2022, is a business resource liaison group. What I'm trying to do is recruit 3 to 4 energetic volunteers who primarily focus on business relationships here in the city of Fortuna. And so, you know, it just basically says it all there at the bottom of the slide. It's important to do all we can to constantly improve relationships. And that's, you know, what we want to do here at the police department, especially with our business community. And so once we get to that point where we can take a little closer look at, you know, our Citizens on Patrol Academy and really targeting 3 or 4 new energetic volunteers, which will kind of serve in that liaison role. We'd really like to kick that off as a department program. That way we have a little quicker feedback from our businesses who need the department when they need us. So, you know, essentially not having to rely on a business owner feeling like, you know, well, a crime really didn't occur, so, you know, I'm not going to call the police department. We still want to have those conversations, you know, before problems start happening. So, you know, it's like anything else. We have a segment of the community and a segment of business owners who they will be proactive about contacting me specifically or one of the members of command staff. Others feel like, you know, well, something significant didn't occur enough for me to contact the police department. And again, I just kind of want to get that message out there. We want to hear from you before there's a problem. Where there's smoke, there's fire. And so please pick up the phone. Or, you know, my door is normally open 90% of the time. Come have a conversation with me. I would love to see you and love to talk to you about whatever's going on. We'll go ahead and skip grant funding. I will just say that as part of the, you know, ongoing goals and overarching goals for my office, we are always looking for any type of grant funding. Again, also very proactive in our fundraising. One of the biggest ones to talk about is just the USDA grant for the police department. You know, when I go back to some of the dialogue or conversation I was having with you on, you know, updating the image and the branding for the police department, that doesn't just benefit the department. It benefits the city, it benefits the community, you know, and we we're successful again this year with USDA. We're able to bring 2 fully equipped, brand new patrol cars or cruisers into the fleet and kind of start weaning out some of the older cars that, you know, they don't look great, right? So they don't help imaging, they don't help branding. You know, in some ways they can be a turnoff. They're not visually appealing. And so that's an issue. And as chief, something that, you know, I keep myself aware of and try to find ways in which, you know, we can kind of eliminate, I don't want to call them an eyesore, but, you know, things that aren't visually appealing within the community. So USDA is helping us. We got 2 new cars last year. We got 2 new cars this year. I'll go after it again next year. The 2 new cars this year will give us the ability to kind of finally weed out those older Crown Vics. Currently, we have 3 of them where, you know, the paint is oxidizing and fading and they just don't look great in the community. So we want to be able to build that, that imaging and branding, and grants like USDA are helping us accomplish that. So I also presented this slide to council during my quarterly report. You know, it's important that the community know, you know, hey, what the department's up to, what's the chief up to? So I thought I would share a little bit about that with you. You know, one of the things that I did this year was, historically we had gone year by year as far as the MOU contract with dispatch services with Ferndale and Riodale. I worked with the city manager and with Aaron over in finance to present a 3-year deal, which we solidified this year. So now we have a 3-year updated MOU signed with the Ferndale Police Department and the Riodale Police Department for dispatch services. So that's beneficial because, you know, to be completely transparent, you know, things had fallen a little behind historically. You know, those services have gone back as far as about 2015. And, you know, it's just one of those things that you have to constantly be looking at on a year-by-year basis, as far as, you know, what are the actual costs associated with these services, and, you know, what should we be charging? So I feel like, you know, we're finally up to speed to where we should be with these MOUs. And, you know, now we have it signed for a 3-year deal. And, you know, we'll address those year by year, of course, but we're where we need to be for the next 3 years. Drug Task Force, we can go back to that. Drug Task Force, we were able to replace the former officer, which I talked about, lateraled to a Sacramento Valley agency. We have new blood, so to speak, up at the task force. All reports are that the officer assigned is doing great. I am currently the executive chair for the DTF Task Force Board. So what that means is I meet with the other chiefs and sheriff, the district attorney on a monthly basis. It's you know, a steering committee in which we make decisions for DTF and on things like asset forfeiture and policy, and you know, just kind of oversee what is occurring with Drug Task Force. With the SWAT team, we still have 2 members assigned to the regional SWAT team out of the sheriff's office. So those 2 officers are specially trained and equipped to deal with catastrophic or critical incidences, and do so on a pretty regular basis. I am looking at adding a 3rd member to that SWAT team sometime in 2021, but again, it's something that we have to have the funding for. I talked about earlier our ability now as a department to provide a regional resource for mutual aid by way of our canine teams. We're already doing that. We've had our canine deployed to unincorporated county areas, McKinleyville, Eureka. The drug task force has utilized our canines. And so, you know, again, we're not just here for Fortuna, we're here for the Eel River Valley and the Humboldt County region to be able to assist with, you know, anything that requires one of the purposes of our canine. So again, they are narcotic detection trained, and they're also patrol apprehension trained. So
Hey,
one of the other,
So sorry, Chief, we're at 4 minutes past 1. Do you want to whiz through so we can take some questions?
Yeah, I'll just hit on these last two things and then
Okay.
we're just going to cut it. So
Perfect.
one of the last couple things is I am serving as a secretary for our LICA Association. That's the Chief Executive Association here in Humboldt County. And the co-op program is something that I've been working on for a couple of months, which I'm sure there might be a couple questions about that, but you know, co-op is something that I bring from Shasta County. I didn't invent it and I didn't reinvent the wheel, but you know, I'm looking at working with the DA and the sheriff and other agency heads on what we can do to hold our offenders accountable, not the most egregious, but the ones that are, you know, the police department spends 90% of their time with 10% of the problem. So we want to make sure that our chronic offenders are held accountable. And so I'm going to cut it off there because I'll keep going and going and going. And then if there are some questions, we can just dive into those.
Awesome. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Come on after. There we go. Walt Wilson.
I need to get unmuted here. Chief Day, that was an excellent presentation. Thank you. My question is, are the Canine t-shirts available and where?
Yes, sir. Great question, Mr. Wilson. We have them available in our front lobby at the main station. We have all sizes. And you come in anytime, even if the lobby is closed, just call dispatch and we'll have somebody come out and get you those t-shirts. And this is a good point for me to segue. I just want to address the elephant in the room. Yes, this is a pink undershirt. I'm still the cowboy hat, boot wearing chief you guys wanted here in Fortuna, but I went to pink for the month of October. The city always does a big campaign for Think Pink. And so we also have our pink patches available as a fundraiser. So again, come to the lobby. We throw all that money at California Cancer Crusher here in Humboldt County. And it's just a great way for us to collaborate and give back to the community.
Great. And I know that Chief, you and I had talked last week that part of the community outreach is letting businesses know about some of these repeat offenders. So we had shared something in our newsletter. It's not for public posting by any means, but just an alert for our local businesses. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes, thank you, Renee. Really briefly. So one of the programs that we're starting, and we sent out the first flyer last week, is again, you know, you've heard from me about how important it is for us as a department to be proactive with our business community. I don't like to just talk about things and kind of leave it out there. I like tangible examples. And so I asked Renee to partner with me last week, and we put out our first flyer on a local out-of-state mail. I'm not going to go into it here for the sake of brevity, but you can get the flyer from Renee. And basically, you know, we've arrested this guy 6 times in the last month, and Ferndale's arrested him once. And you know, I was trying to have my evaluation lunch with Merritt Perry and he ruined my lunch. So, you know, I want the businesses to be aware that as a department, we're going to start putting out these flyers. We're going to put out this information. We're not going to just wait, but we're going to take that proactive step, and we're going to make you aware of, you know, the person, if they're a repeat chronic offender, how they're disturbing the businesses, essentially what crimes have they been arrested for here in Fortuna and what are they doing? And so that the businesses can educate their staff and be aware that when these people come to the door, you don't have to wait. You reserve the right to refuse service as a general practice, and call us. Don't hesitate. You will get a unit at your business to address the person that you don't want in there. And if they fail to leave after you've asked them to, and you want to press, you know, 836 trespass, citizens arrest for trespassing, we'll deal with it.
Great. I've heard from 2 businesses. They were very appreciative. They keep books behind their counter, you know, of customers, or I should say customers, individuals who have maybe shoplifted. So this is nice. It's just a way for them to compile that data. So they were very appreciative of that flyer. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
final questions before we let you all very, very, very patient folks go? Thank you. Anybody? No? Oh, it's such a good bunch. Awesome. Thank you, Chief Day. It was great to get a catch up. It's always great information to keep our community updated on what's happening. So I appreciate that. Also, thank you for being at that community meeting up in Campton Heights. I know a few residents that would love to know about those in advance. And also, when is the next coffee with the chief happening?
Yeah, so we're trying something a little bit differently. Actually, you and I will be talking about that. So, full disclosure, we were doing it every month and just not kind of getting the turnout that we wanted to. We were getting a better turnout virtually than we were in person. I went back to my first in person and I invited, Council Member Losi to kind of be my guest of honor for that. And, what I realized was, Chief, it probably would help if you advertised it a little better. And so that is my goal going forward, is to work with you, Renee, and some other businesses to kind of help push my agenda out there. But it will be returning. We will also be doing a different segment that's going to be questions for the chief at lunch. It's similar. Some of you may have seen Sheriff Hansel do that from time to time. So again, I'm not going to reinvent the wheel, but I'll probably do something similar to what Billy has going on every other month or so, if there are questions.
Search and develop it. That's what we do in the chamber world too. We share and just tweak it, and don't reinvent the wheel. So that's great. That's awesome. There's something else I was going to say. Now I lost my train of thought, but what else? I can't think of it. Oh, well, I guess it wasn't super important.
Maybe the cleanups.
Yeah, no. Oh yeah. You were starting to talk about that.
So, one of the ideas that we had early on, and we're trying again, we're going to wait a little bit. We're going to wait this out to see kind of what happens with COVID and ride this roller coaster. But police department is very interested in talking to landowners or association leaders for some of our businesses. We'd love to be involved just on a community level with any type of site cleanup. So again, we're going to kind of wait that out a little bit, but it is something that we're looking at going forward.
Oh, and I just remembered what it was. I just wanted to say in advance, thank you for helping us with the whistle stop event with the Capitol tree that's coming out on Saturday, the 30th. We have a 108-foot truck coming in, and so we're going to need some police assistance and traffic control down at the Riverwalk for that event. So more information on that will be coming out. And with that, I bid everybody a fond week, and we will see you next week with the Humboldt Bay Harbor District. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Take care. Thanks, Chief. We appreciate it.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Bye-bye.
Have a good week. Thanks, Chief.
Bye, guys.